Hello, everyone. Excited to be here. This was supposed to happen last year, so a couple presentations today and have both been on hold for some time. Um, Quick thank you to Claude Allaire and Coach Nelson, Coach Dave Nelson. Dave's been a tremendous mentor for me, helped me get a job way back about 20 years ago in football. And then also Claude Allaire, who's kind of the jack of all trades. You know, when you need something, you call Claude, and he's on it. So appreciate that. And also the snazzy MFCA top. So when you start your own company, there's a lot of challenges, and I still haven't even gotten shirts, hats, anything with logos on it. So I guess if I ever am a head coach, I won't be the guy that starts with the uniforms. I'm going to pull up here, get to a PowerPoint. The focus today, I was asked at first, hey, you know, what would you want to do a topic for youth sports? And my background in youth sports, besides playing them, is when I was in college down at Winona State for 5 years, I ran our summer rec program, and it was mainly baseball and softball. And we did some other things, but more than anything, and I was an elementary ed major. I also have a master's degree in education, but it was those 5 years that really helped me understand how to work with people and specifically kids. And when Coach Nelson contacted me, he said, hey, would you be willing to do something on quarterback play for youth? And ultimately, I wanted to do something that I thought, I don't know if it's been done before, but I really reflected on what my youth experience was like and how I was able to develop in football. And really what it came down to was everything I learned in other sports. So as we get going here, I told Wade, feel free to chime in with questions as needed. I feel like this one, unlike my other talk, I'm going to have a little bit more time to do that. So regrowing and retaining, regrowing football and retaining student athletes using multi-sport drills. My profile, not going to go over all of it, but really what it comes back to, I was fortunate enough, my first position coach in college down at Winona State, Coach Tom Sawyer, who's a tremendous mentor to me. First day walking on campus was my position coach. He then became our head coach 2 years later. I was a GA for him, was able to get into coaching because of him, and went from a position coach to a coordinator. In my background in football, been a coordinator, offensive coordinator at 2 schools at the college level, special teams coordinator for 13 years, and I'm very fortunate to spend 8 years on defense as well, besides being an offensive coordinator. And most of that time with Wally Kuczynski at St. Thomas, who I view not only as a great friend, but one of the very best defensive coordinators in the country at all levels. And it's been great. I've coached every position in college football except for D-line. Again, tremendous experience. I would ask all of you at some point to take on the challenge of moving around. In the end, guys, it's coming up with a couple drills. It's working with people, getting them to believe in themselves, and coming up with a handful of drills that you're going to work with and get really good with. And other than that, it's working with people. So little background as you're looking at what I do. What is Rotary? A lot of people have asked me that. Well, it started out, the original thought was going to transition out of college coaching. I had done it for 21 years, and it's not that I didn't want to do it. I basically came to a point and said, is that all I'm going to ever do? And at some point, will I look back? And I had read, maybe it was a TED Talk, and someone said, you know, do something for 20 years and then figure out a way to teach it if you're good enough at it. And I really had come up with some goals to regrow football, do the best I can to help Minnesota regrow football. And what can we do to retain athletes specifically in football? And I think it can be done through transformational leadership. And part of the business plan, the what, is the on-site consulting, where basically I come on site as a consultant, anywhere from youth programs all the way up through colleges. I had 3 college clients. I had 21 high school clients. And I come on site and provide you strategy reports. And we'll talk more on that actually in my second clinic talk. The bottom part, though, reimagining our game and Route Tree 3-on-3 came out of an interesting talk. You know, I thought a lot about how I grew up playing football, and it was 2-on-2 and 3-on-3 in the backyard. And I was having a conversation with one of my brother Carson's mentors. My brother Carson is coached in the NFL. He's with the Cleveland Browns right now. At the time, he was with Philly. One of his mentors is Mark Trestman, who's a Minnesota guy. And we were talking a lot about what both of us were doing in our transition times here in life. And I said, hey, can I pitch something to you? And I ran out this 3-on-3 concept, touch football. Basically, what I loved about backyard football was I could be the general manager, the official, the quarterback, the corner, the drop linebacker, all in 5 minutes. And he said, you know, it's a fascinating idea. He's a quarterback guy. You think about all the reps that happen in 3-on-3 for your receivers and your DBs and your on-ball defense. And I kind of committed to doing it over the phone to him. And at the same time, COVID's coming into play, and I'm getting all these coaches calling saying, hey, can you run our 7-on-7? I technically can't, but our kids can get together and do it. And 7-on-7 is vast. You need playbooks. And to me, it was just too much. And I pitched this 3-on-3 idea. I built a website within 3 weeks, and we had our first league running in Caledonia within a month. And then we had tournaments in the Rochester area for grade levels, 3rd grade through varsity. And it was phenomenal. So as I've worked with different clients here, you'll see on a couple screens here, if you're wondering, you know, who have you worked with and what have you done? I've really come to understand that there's 3 types of head coaches or leaders of organizations or programs that I've worked with. There's the seeker, the guy that's always looking for the edge. And just because you're a seeker doesn't mean you're attaining at the highest levels. But in most cases, the first guy is to reach out to me. And I reached out to guys and contacts that I had through college recruiting for years and pitched them the idea. But the first ones that were to respond usually were high achieving guys that had won at the highest levels that were saying, we're looking for any edge we can get to be different and stay above. As I click onto the next screen, again, if you're wondering about the clients, I'm just showing you to the side there. But the next one is kind of a confirmer. It's someone that said, you know what? I've been here for 8 to 10 years. We've had continuity in our staff. And I just want to make sure that the things that we're doing are good, you know, that I'm not doing anything that's hurting us. And then really the last type of coach that I've worked with is what I would call a flatliner. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but really it's the guy that said, you know what, we do what we do. We don't need to be real fancy. And by no means am I saying that those people can't win, because there's some flatliners out there that have done the same thing for 25 years and win at a really high level. But then there's also flatliners, and you look at what's been done or what's not been done, saying maybe that is part of the problem, that we're not growing and moving in the direction that we would like to. So 3-on-3 in a nutshell. I'm just going to pop up my website here. You can see some of what I believe are the better points of why we do it. And this is going to lead into kind of the multi-sport drills, but it's free play. There are no coaches. And when you take coaches out of it, I think it adds a little bit more to the player experience. It forces them to lead. I'm a big believer in leadership, but I think there's also some really undervalued traits in leadership, such as followership. And it allows kids to be kids, and it gives them a safety to be able, as they're working with their friends, to lead in the way that they do within those networks. We do have certified officials. I think it serves a couple purposes. One, our official pool is dwindling, and it gives more opportunity for young people to get into officiating. And I like our kids in our leagues to be able to see officials as something more than this scary person that's going to ruin their season. There's a lot of interactions. I tell the officials to please encourage. I know they do on game nights anyway, but also they're teaching the game while they're there. And really, they're my eyes, and they're kind of my leadership, adult version. And it's a different relationship between the kids and the officials. And I had some of the best officials. We had some of the best officials down in Rochester, and it was really a lot of fun to see that relationship grow. And I give the officials a platform to say, this is why our job is tough. This is why we love doing our job, and trying to encourage more people to transition into that. It's fast. There's no huddles. So there's no coaching. There's no huddles. And we're getting 2 plays a minute, and that is a ton of reps. 20-minute games, we're getting 40 reps in 20 minutes. It's awesome. More throws, catches, and on-ball defense. So think about it. Quarterback's throwing every ball. You only have 3 guys on a team, so on average, every ball is either coming your way or you're defending it on ball. Fun with friends, I think, is so important. There's a lot in this. The fun part of it, I asked kids. I had some time, I was doing some stuff at some rec centers as well, and the numbers show that basketball's growing, soccer's growing, but football has not grown. Actually, there's a little uptick, and we had some growth in the last year. And I know a lot of people want to point to concussions and things like that as to why things have went a different way. I think the other sports have reimagined their game and catered to kids a little bit more. And I'm not talking about the high school version of 11-on-11. We all know why that's important. There's a selflessness to playing football that you might not have in a lot of other sports. There's a lot of pieces. There's a lot of body types. And football is phenomenal for those reasons. But when kids say I have more fun in basketball or soccer, what I've learned, at first I just dismissed it at that. And then I said, what do you mean fun? And they'd say, well, in basketball and soccer, I can just go get the ball if I want it. There's not a coach saying I get the ball. Why did I love football? I always loved football practices. And it blew me away when my buddies said, I don't like football practice. I like the games. I was a quarterback. I was a running back. I was one that got to handle the ball. So it was always fun for me. It's the same reason I stopped playing second base in second grade, because we had the own boys pitching. No one could ever hit the ball. So I said, I'm going to go to catcher. Otherwise, this is going to be a long summer. I wanted to be involved where everyone was looking, which was at the ball. So fun means ball. Can I have access to the ball where everyone's looking? The friends part of it is safety. What they're saying is, it's not just, I had fun in 3-on-3. I had fun. They said, I had fun playing with friends. And it's that safe network of, if I want to ask to play quarterback, I feel good asking. If I want to contribute to what play we should run, I feel comfortable doing that. But please have fun with friends. We have music, we have jerseys, we do interviews. I try to take something, some sort of lesson that we can teach that's going to benefit them in the future. We did interviews just with an iPhone. And I can remember we went to Caledonia, and I had run across this clip of Eli King, which everyone knows who Eli King is now. And he's probably in 8th grade at the time. I don't know, 6th grade, 5th grade. I have no idea. But he was being interviewed by a local TV channel. And they asked him, what do you expect of the game today? And I was telling the Caledonia, the 5th graders that I was working with that had to do these interviews, I said, when you're doing an interview, you want to repeat the question, you want to answer the question, you want to keep it brief. And what Eli does is, she says, what do you expect from the game today? And he said, I expect to win. He repeated the question, he answered the question, and he kept it brief. Okay, so there's other things that we want to take away from this model. And then the formats, there's leagues, there's tourneys, and then I want to get into some true team stuff. I loved running track, and I love the format of true team, and I think there's something that can be taken from that. Program consulting, what is that? It's just essentially coming on site. Instead of you going to a clinic, typing out notes, figuring out which clinic topics you want to listen to, which ones are going to fit your program, and then taking back and doing it, I come on site. And this really came out of a couple different things. One, I talked to Brian Vossen, and I was kind of pitching this idea of helping football in Minnesota and doing private lessons. And he said, hey, if you're looking at regrowing football from my perspective and high school coaches' perspective and retaining athletes, private lessons aren't necessarily what's going to best help my program. And I was stuck. I'd kind of made this jump already thinking this is what I was going to do. And I was missing football. I had missed my first spring in 21 years. And I called up Nick Johnson at Egan. He was running his first practice ever. And I said, hey, can I come over and watch? And I was watching. And obviously, as I'm there, he says, hey, if you see anything, let me know. So I started jotting down some notes. And he said, hey, he emailed and said, do you have those notes? And I sent them. And he gets back to me, he says, I think you have something here. And I'm like, what? He says, I think you should go around and do this. It was really helpful to me as a young coach. And that's kind of how the program consulting started. And I can talk more on that in the next session later. We want to improve the efficiency of program and just add the best practices is really what it comes down to. All right, so kind of Jalen Suggs week around here in Minnesota until the national championship game. Unfortunate to see him get in trouble. One of my consulting stops, and I get it, and it must be tough to consult for a team that has Jalen Suggs on it. It was a lot of fun. And I don't know if you guys saw the quote, but Suggs had said in an interview that his greatest sports moment leading up to that shot, that buzzer beater that maybe everyone in the world saw, was his section football championship. And I just love how football comes back into the game for a guy who, you know, is probably going to be a top 3 draft pick, if not number 1, and hopefully for the Wolves. But kind of the pinnacle of what football consulting is for me to say that, hey, you were able to affect the game, because I'll do on-site stuff at games to help people with efficiencies. I do some advanced scouting as well, but you can see here is a napkin that I drew out the night of the game. I had done some stuff leading up to the game for them. I will do some advanced scouting and game night stuff in playoff time because teams don't need program efficiency at that time. They need to focus on only winning games. A lot of my program efficiency and strategy report stuff, consulting, is done earlier in the season, fall camp, September, October. Long story short, how does this all play out? So I'm going to jump over here, stop share. Roundtree3on3.com is the site, and you can kind of scroll through it and get a better idea of what it is we do. So basically, it's 3-on-3. The defense throws the ball here. They can blitz as well. It's a little bit different. There's rules. Everything you need to know about bringing this to your school. I view as an off-season deal, maybe in season for younger ages, but more than anything, just an off-season deal. So if you have time, want to go through it, you can get a hold of me at any time, learn a little bit more about it. We also have my consulting site. So football program consulting, it's for all levels, youth through college, comprehensive, and it's on site. We pre-consult, we do a synopsis, which is basically our strategy report. And then for every strength you have, I list it. But then I also say, here are the recommendations, and then provide an action plan for how to move ahead. And really what I've heard from coaches is it's helped with efficiency, it's improved our growth and retention, and it gives us just a little bit of validation in what we're doing. There's testimonials if you want them, you've seen this, and then current and past clients. You can also look at rates, what our brand has done over the first year. This past year, we did nothing, with COVID, and then some public speaking stuff. And then lastly, I'd like to get in and showing you. So how does consulting at the very pinnacle end up working out? I showed you the clip, and specifically, I drew it up on a napkin and gave it to the head coach. Now, you got to give the head coach a lot of credit to be able to, and have enough pliability and flexibility. It was in his report that week, but to also in game make an adjustment. So how does this play out? Jalen Suggs talking about the biggest game of his life. Here's jersey number 3. Here's jersey number 29, the matchup that we wanted. We're running a little bit of a shake route. We've got 50 seconds in the game, a chance to go to the state semis, and they connect on the play. Part of what I'm going to do later is consulting. Why do we need to work center quarterback exchanges every day in practice? Imagine something like this not happening because of a bad snap. If it's not Jalen Suggs, is it caught? That'll be talked about more later. Pretty neat to be a part of that. And going to 60 practices in a given year was what I was able to do without it being a practice that I was coaching in. And I had 21 years of learning, practicing, watching film, running sessions, but to be on the other end of it and be able to sit through 60 practices that I'm not doing that and learn, it was like I went to 60 clinics. It was phenomenal. So I'm going to transition back here to our, okay, so youth football and goals. Talked about regaining. I believe the physical development part of youth football, it has to be high reps. Football has got to be more than just, coaching has got to be more than just football. If I could recommend anything, there's a great book called Permission to Feel by Mark Brackett. It's about emotional intelligence. Intelligence and leadership affects everything. It affects our personal health. It affects the personal health of the kids that we're working with. It affects creativity across the board. It's unbelievable concepts that I'll be talking about later in my second talk. Transformational coaching, if you're working with kids, if you're working with young men and women at any level, please take the time to watch Inside Out, to read Inside Out Coaching by Joe Ehrman. It really changed my life in the way that I coach. I'm not necessarily proud of when I reflect on who I was as a young coach. I was really just coaching the way I learned to be coached. And so many of the mentors that I had in coaching growing up were guys that were military, that had to go to military. They were drafted, and they ran their sports teams often like they were part of their military drills. It was very, I guess, how would I say this? It's very much about obedience. And whereas I prefer discipline, obedience is more about just listening to someone and doing it. Whereas discipline is more about teaching people to gather that discipline for themselves and be able to handle themselves moving forward. And really, my experiences in being able to emote and share my feelings, when I reflect on it, really only came with guys that were really religious, coaches that were religious, and there was a different bond. And I'm hoping we can become a coaching community. When we talk about retaining kids and growing our sport, regrowing our sport, it's not about growing it. It's went down, it's time to regrow it. Besides pulling into these multi-sport kids, we've got to make a great connection with the kids that we have. And I talked about the fun with friends. Again, a stack statement. And please understand what fun means and what with friends means. And you can say, well, in 11 football, they're playing with friends. They are. But in a 7-on-7, a 5-on-5, a 3-on-3, they're going to have more say in what goes on, and they're going to feel more comfortable again in their role. What do I love about multi-sport? Besides the health benefits, we all know the health benefits. Using all of your joint muscle groups in one sport throughout the year, we've seen what's happened. I don't remember a lot of ACLs when I was in high school. Got ninth graders tearing ACLs now. And so we know, though, we've heard a lot about the benefits there. As I reflect on my own experience, I think about the procedures and the routines of different sports. There were two sports that were not on my radar growing up that my dad kind of recommended and asked, do you want to do them? And one was golf and one was soccer, two completely different sports. They weren't really on my radar because they weren't mainstream sports. I couldn't see them on TV. What I remember very early on liking about golf is just the procedure and the routine. And we had junior golf. I grew up in a little town called Elgin, and there was a golf course 5 miles away. And it was that idea of the golf coach saying, hey, whatever your routine is, you kind of want to do it with everything you do. And you start thinking about how that carried over to the way that I thought about a free throw in basketball, or the way that when I stepped into the batter's box, how it is I was going to get into my rhythm. For the Packer fans, a very interesting story on the history of the chin strap and Packer legacy with Bart Starr and Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. If you watch specifically Favre and Rodgers, I've been able to watch in my lifetime, and they have the little single strapper. And as I watch them break the huddle, they clap their hands, and the first thing they do when they break the huddle is they take that chin strap and strap it. To me, that's a trigger. That is them starting the routine. It's something physical that lets them know, okay, now I got to get into my progression. And for a lot of quarterbacks and a lot of positions, you're not always the one getting the reps, right? But there's no reason to think that you can't be getting mental reps, what we call QB mirroring. I learned from my brother, who learned it from Coach Trustman. If you're not the guy up, it doesn't mean that you can't be the guy going through the routine 15 yards behind the play. In fact, one of the consults I did, the job of the backup quarterback was to spot the ball, then come to the huddle, listen to the play that was being called by whoever was running the huddle, go back, tell everyone else that's there what the play was so he could work on the verbiage and being able to spit it out in a way in which people understand it. And then was to turn around and then go through the actions once the ball was snapped of what the other quarterbacks were doing. So procedures and routines, you don't necessarily need the rep. I know, virtual reality right now is becoming really big in the way that the NFL is going and how they're teaching their kids. And our kids all play video games. I think there's things that can be learned from that. Role and rank are really pretty close. When I talk about undervalued traits in leadership, some sports allow you to take a little bit more of a followership role. I believe followership is as important as leadership. There is a great TED Talk called How to Start a Movement. It's 4 minutes. It'll be worth your 4 minutes. Let me tell you, please write it down. It's called How to Start a Movement. I just call it the first follower. And it's the idea that no matter what movement it is, no matter what business you're starting, whatever it is that you're trying to bring to the table, and they actually call this leader a lone nut. In order to start a movement, you're always going to need a first follower to join you, which will then encourage other people to say, it's not just one person anymore, it's multiple people. And I think about the different sports that I've played. In football, certainly, the role is at quarterback, which I played. It kind of pushes you more into a leadership role. But playing right guard might not the same way that playing quarterback would, or being the punter, which I also was, okay? So really, how does leadership work, and how do different positions in different sports allow you to take on different leadership roles? When I talk about rank and power, it's really a lot of the same things in that different sports allow you to, put it this way, being in track, it was kind of a single, an individual sport for me. It was more internal. Being the catcher in baseball, it was a little bit more external. I was out there a little bit more vocal. I had to be. So those dynamics, awesome multi-sport benefits. Rhythms, cadences, and paces of games are all different. The way you golf, from a physiological standpoint, is much different than what you're doing in basketball and football, where it's very reactive and you're going against people, where in golf, it's almost like you're going against yourself. And in other sports, you're going against an object like a ball or something like that. So again, I kind of already talked about the proactive and reactive. Situationally, I can remember being a goalie in soccer and then being a safety in football. And really, it's no different than being a goalie in hockey, right? Or you're wrestling and you're trying to keep a guy from escaping because you lose if he escapes. I mean, the bottom line is you're the last line of defense, and it goes across multiple sports. And being a soccer goalie helped me to be a safety. It taught me about angles and just that understanding that if I don't get this done, our team's going to be in tough shape. Ball handling, I think it's one of the most underrated techniques. It's one of the techniques in football. A lot of people are saying right now, what's ball handling in football? To me, as an undersized running back, I needed to use every advantage I could to get yards after contact. And that meant, I ache when I watch kids carry the ball high and tight and get tackled from that side. To me, this is not pro football. Okay. The reason this technique came in the long run, we got to look at cost benefits. In the long run, I believe that high and tight came about because people could get fired if their guy fumbles. NFL, major college football. In the long run, if you say, what are the benefits of raking the ball and getting an off-arm frame? Number one, I say health, prevents injury. I don't want a free shot in the shoulder. It's number one, guy's coming down, he gets a free shot in the shoulder, and then when I fall and I plant with my opposite hand, you can break a wrist. Balance, okay? When a tightroper goes across, and he feels a wind coming from this way, he doesn't take this arm and bring it in. We've got to balance it out. So I'm going to stay on my feet better. if I have my off arm free to where the force is coming. Ball protection, let's get the ball in the opposite arm away from where the defender's coming, and yards after contact. What I always taught is, guys, we want to punch, just like I'm punching someone, only with an open hand. Ball handling, when I think about it, if there was one thing I was really, really good at is I could ball handle as a running back and get that outside arm free. How did I learn that? It went back to my catcher pop drills with Jarvis Anderson and Mike Ohm, my baseball coaches. And as you're down in a catcher's stance and you have to transition from catch to throw, I did thousands of these reps, guys. And I'm thinking, like, how it's taking a ball from two hands and transitioning it to one and getting a hand out. It's no different than this. And Coach Cheetah, if you guys if you want to do something that's going to make you a better coach and understand how to run a practice, every year, he's the softball coach at St. Thomas. This is a guy that was asked to coach Olympic teams in softball, and he's coached Division III softball because that's what he loves. He did it at St. Mary's when I was going to Winona State. He won a national championship down there. If you want to watch someone teach about everything there is in life in a 30-minute segment and get really, really good at what they're trying to do, it's this guy. And he would love to have you at practice. I called him up because I was doing this. I said, talk to me about multi-sport benefits. He goes, you know what? It's amazing. When you think about throwing from the outfield, they've done studies. The most comparable thing you can do to throwing a ball from the outfield as an outfielder throwing it home or to third or whatever is a judo hip toss, because your hips rotate like this and you still have to come over the top, okay? One of the days I went, he had this fascinating lesson about ball placement as it pertains to being able to turn a double play. And really, the point was, it's the thrower's job to make a ball catchable enough so we can transition, over to the next base, okay? And as I'm watching it, he has a grid. So it shows a girl catching the ball, and this is an A, this is an A, this is a B, this is a B, 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 but you get outside the frame, that's a C, that's a D, that's an E. And his grading system is strictly saying, if we're not here, our chances of actually turning that double play drop significantly. So he teaches on how to throw at the right spot. We all tell our quarterbacks at the youth level, at every level, hey, throw it so you can lead them and get it in a spot where they can transition right. But unlike baseball, now we can say if it was thrown here and it was dropped, that's not a good thing. But how many times has a guy crossing the field, instead of catching the ball in front of him, had to go like this, and then their transition doesn't allow them to go ahead and get to the first down? So let's think big about this and the benefits of teaching the small things in something like throwing a catchable ball. And that's what some of these multi-sport drills are going to do. I also called another contact, Austin Yoakum. Austin is the strength coach at the University of St. Thomas. We coached him. He's an All-American. The guy was phenomenal. A 215-pound nose tackle. It's just unreal. But he brought up a word called gamify. And he said, I like to gamify everything I do in our active flex time and all that. And what I took from that, if you need to get a hold of Austin and you're looking for just a different way to run your strength program, this is the guy to do it. He talked about gamifying warm-ups. And really what I thought about, what I loved about a lot of the other practices, soccer, basketball, is the practices were games. They were little small-sided games, one-on-one. In baseball, we'd play the hot box. In soccer, everything was 2-on-2 or 3-on-3. And our passing and dribbling games were 1-on-1 and 2-on-2. And the light bulb went on for me was how do we find ways to make football more like that in the way that we practice, gamify it? But then also, we work so hard to recruit these kids over to our sports. Once they're there, let's cater to them a little bit and use drills that they're used to running to make them feel better about that transition into football. So I'm going to transition over here. It's just going to be film the rest of the way. All right, so video clips. When we talk about gamifying warm-ups, what are we talking about? In college, my buddies and I would play speed walk football in the street in front of our house, 1-on-1, 2-on-2, mainly 2-on-2. And the only rule was you couldn't run. You could walk and you could speed walk. So all we're doing is running speed walks, sharks, and minnows to get guys warmed up for a little bit of fun. All right, let's work on those ankle joints, knees, hips, wrists, and do a little bear crawl, shark, and minnow to get them warmed up. It's a ton of fun. Kids love it. Your wrestlers will love it. Same thing, let's work on the shoulders a little bit more. And go ahead and crab walk and do some sharks and minnows. So while this is warm-ups, it's a way for guys to have a little bit of fun instead of just doing our basic active stretch or active flex. All right, let's bring baseball into it. Our scoop and score is baseball, guys. It's what it is. We're asking our kids to plant their feet, get set over the ball. We would always say 4 balls over the ball. We want literally our balls over the ball and our eyeballs over the ball and sit down and squat on top of it. This is a baseball drill. It's what it is. And it's so important to the tackle takeaway circuit in football. All right, now, it was COVID. Coach O'Brien at STA and Coach Johnson at Egan rounded up 10 kids for me total. Outside, it was snowing. So when we do these drills, I need you to picture these drills being 15-yard throws with your 9-year-olds, okay? I understand that that's not what it looks like here. When I was coaching youth baseball, our little boys and girls couldn't throw and catch as 5-year-olds. So we would just line them up and we would do relays, just throwing the ball so we could learn how to catch. Kind of like, it's not just learning how to throw to the right spot, but learning how to catch and transition and go to the next guy. And what are we doing? We're just gamifying this whole thing, guys. So if you look at this group over to the left, and I would want to do it with 4 people over about 40 yards, 10 to 15 yards throws, transitioning, and you make it a race on a much bigger scale. This one is just turning double plays. And again, we're emphasizing throwing, catching, and running. It's turning a double play. He's going to throw the ball. And again, I picture this being like on a baseball diamond, not within 5 yards. So he's going to throw the ball. He's going to jump. And then he's got to try to beat the relay down to first base. Again, on a much bigger field. A little around the horn here with the opposite hand. So I have everyone using their opposite hand, left hands. The ball has to go a certain way. So all lefties would have to be together and all righties. But when we're talking about 8 and 9-year-olds learning how to throw and catch and put the ball in a good spot, a race is an awesome way to teach them that throwing it in a spot where someone has to bend down could cost you. And the best thing about all these drills is you can say, guys, we're doing around the horn. They know how to line up. If you've done it once or twice, they know how to line up. They can do it in pods, and one coach can run 25 kids. Baseball, we all played this in the backyard, and I'm going to fast forward to one of these. It's hot box with a football. So you have to throw on the run. You have to catch on the run. Watch the guy in the middle. We talk about pro agility drills. We're going to watch the draft here coming up, and we watch the combine. Watch the big guy in the middle. 5, 10, 5. That's a pro agility. And it's a ton of fun for these guys playing elimination. All right, I talked about ball handling earlier. When we talk about the 5 points of pressure, I think there's one that's really underrated. You know, you have the eagle claw over the top of the ball. You got the palm here, bicep, and body. I don't think we put enough time into hand strength and teaching the importance of the palm when we talk about our 5 points of pressure. These ball handling drills are the ones I did in basketball growing up. I'd sit on my couch for hours doing this stuff because I wanted to be able to palm a ball, and I didn't have big hands, but I got to the point where I could. It's no different in football. It's about transitioning the ball as fast as we can. Make this a game. How many can we get in 30 seconds? We want to go against the guy next to us. Back and forth. Competition. How many of these can we get? before we drop one. And I missed the one that I like the most, that I used to always do sitting on the couch, is this one. You put it up over your hand, the palm of your hand, up to the back of your hand, and you catch it. All right, for our basketball players, this is a drill I use. So when I was at Winona State, I played football, and then as soon as football got over, I became a manager my junior and senior year for the basketball team, the varsity basketball team. This was the first drill that they did every day. It's not just about catching and throwing, but you also had to say the name of the guy. So there was a concentration piece to it as well. You'd throw it back, you'd pivot, you'd hand the ball off. And then they got really good at it, and you'd add another ball in. So there was a little bit of a pressure to going fast. And as the manager, I would have to say how many circuits they got on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to see if we got better. Now, this is the first time these kids have ever done it. Handing off a football is an important part of football. And again, I don't want this done in 5-yard increments. I see it at 10 to 15 where a kid can get a handoff, throw on the run, caught, thrown back to him, catch on the run, and then pivot and work our handoff drill. Literally, I gave these guys 30 seconds. I demoed it, and I'm doing it. Think about this drill running for 8 and 9-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, and working all the skills that we need in football. Let's give you one more good one here. These guys were struggling. So there it is. Pivot, work handoff. 3-man weave. Again, 15 to 20 yards apart. What a drill. You're throwing and catching on the run. You're leading. You got to put them, and you're racing another unit on the other side of the field. Man, what fun that would be. Jump ball. How do we create high point situations? They do it in basketball to start every game. So what are we trying to get it? Jump up, be able to, it's called ball out of water. And I always say alligator out of water. Be able to catch it and then rip yourself away. There we go. We got one. All right. And again, all these drills can be done. Kids can be doing this by themselves in groups of 3s once they know. Let's turn it into a hockey drill and do a face-off. Releases. I think some of the worst coaching I've done in my life is overcoaching things with really good athletes. When I was playing basketball, I didn't decide how to cross over. It was just something I reacted to. And I think overcoaching sometimes is a problem. It certainly was for me. Hopefully you can hear this. Doug Baldwin isn't being taught how to release. He's just doing it. You watch Iverson. I don't think he planned that. The coach said, make sure you beat him right. He's just doing it. He's reacting. And the point here is you don't need a basketball to do this. But what you do with a basketball is certainly going to help you as a wide receiver in releasing.
Hey, Coach, we got about 3 minutes left. Just a heads up.
Okay, I'll push through. So we work on these. And we just say work release drills. You watch this one. Basketball defense is exactly that. Hand, you keep your opposite hand low so he can't cross over. It's no different than your counter punch technique as a safety on a tight end. It's the same exact thing. Want to get into closing out. In football and basketball, this is closing out right here. In football, this is tackling. Hands-free blocking. I could talk for hours on this, guys. When I block here, it's legal. As soon as my hands get outside of my frame, it's illegal. We teach our guys to box out when someone leaves their frame. He gets outside your frame, box out. Now you can see the ball carrier. It's basketball. How does it show up in a game? Don't clip, get in front of them. How does it show up in a game? Just box out. Don't use your hands. We can't get penalties. Want to get to a few of the wrestling ones I love. That's just how we teach it. This is a soccer drill. And in football, it allows you to work on your break point. It's just a 3-man throwing and catching drill. Wrestling, replacing the hands. Wrestling. Tackle takeaway. Wrestling. You'd think it's wrestling, but there's a ball in there. Just a balance drill here. I love it because not only is it about balance, it's about a mind game of if he's pulling me really hard, I'm going to let go. And at times in life, it's not about continuing to battle against what you're against. It's, hey, we got to let go of something. And this is something we called balance wrestling growing up, and I love it. So I have 6 more drills that I'd run in every youth football camp. I don't have time for it. If there are questions and you want to reach out to me, you can call me anytime or reach out to me through the websites. That would be great. Hope you guys appreciate it. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.